Thank you so much for joining us today. There's been a lot of interest in our conversation about dreams today. So let's go ahead and get started. Um, my name is Joni Parsons, and I'm founder of Revel 11, and we're so happy to have you here today. Dreams are one of the most universal yet most mysterious human experience. For as long as we have closed our eyes at night, we have wondered what happens to our minds as they wander into the outer space or into another world. Across cultures and centuries, dreams have been seen as messengers, healings, warnings, and even visitations from beyond. They often carry symbolism from our subconscious, pieces of memory or emotions that haven't yet been processed in our waking lives. Sometimes dreams are so vivid and powerful that they blur the line between the physical and the spiritual. I know that's happened to me. I'm so honored to have Elizabeth Dimarco, whom I call friend, with us today. She is a marketing consultant as well as an accomplished writer. In 2003, she began to spontaneously wake up inside of her dreams and sought a teacher to help her better understand her path. Today, she is a certified dream teacher and leads workshops here in the US and around the globe. She has helped hundreds of people understand and honor the parts of ourselves that speak to us in the language of dreams. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. So first of all, we thought we'd ask a question to our audience today. There are three types of dreams, and we're wondering what you have. So if you would just put one word in, do you have a reoccurring dream, a nightmare or nightmares, or visits from loved ones? So if you would put that in the chat so we can see what the interest is here today. Reoccurring and nightmares. Thank you, Julie. Reoccurring night terrors. Those that stay with me. Loved ones who've passed. Thanks, Kara. Reoccurring. So a lot of reoccurring, heavy and dark. Audra, thank you for sharing. Reoccurring themes, some are nightmares and others are not. So we are kind of all over the place, and we're going to dive into each of those in just a few moments. So Elizabeth, I would love for you to tell us about how dreams became such an important part of your life.
Sure. This is a bit of a story, but I'll try to keep it short. So in 2003, I woke up from a big dream, a dream that I knew was something different than just sort of regurgitating the day's events, or eating bad shrimp. And it haunted me. And so at the time I was working in PR, and I played hooky. I went to the local Barnes and Noble. Looked through all the books on dreaming and found one that described the kind of experience that I felt I'd had, which was that I felt like I'd had a real experience, that some part of me had gone somewhere else and it had really had something in a different reality. And so I took the book home, looked up the author. He did give workshops mostly on the East Coast, but the very next weekend he was going to be in Eugene, Oregon. And so I thought, okay. So I
Close to
signed
us.
up. Exactly. So I signed up, and Friday afternoon drove down to Eugene. For those of you in the Pacific Northwest, in the winter, you know that we have horrible rainstorms. And so I had this horrible rainstorm for 5 hours driving all the way down. I'm thinking, this better be worth it, better be worth it. Got there, and it was in a community center, and everyone was very hippied out. At the moment, I was not. They were sitting on the floor beating drums. I'm thinking, okay, I'm in it. All right, I'm here. And in walks this very tall man with a head of hair, like a big lion head of hair, beating a drum. And he sits down and he says, I'm going to spin the drumstick. And whoever this drumstick points at, you tell your dream. So he spun the drumstick. It flew out of his hand and it ran across the circle and hit me in the third eye. I know. And so he said, tell your dreams. So I began to tell him the dream that had brought me to the workshop. And he starts rummaging behind him. He has a briefcase of papers and stuff. He's rummaging behind him. And I'm thinking, I am so out of here. If this guy can't even listen to my dream for 2 minutes, I'm gone. I stopped talking. He pulls out some papers and he said, let me read you something from the book that I am currently writing. And he starts reading, and it's my dream. And
Oh my gosh, that is incredible.
yeah, it
You
was,
must have been blown away.
I was pretty blown away. I was pretty blown away. So at the first break, he said, okay, who are you? What are you doing here? And I said, I just had this dream and I followed it, and here you are. And so at that point, I figured I'd found a teacher, right?
I think you did for sure.
And began learning from him and going to classes and workshops. And eventually it was, started bringing him to the Northwest because it was cheaper to bring him here than for me to fly everywhere. And then we began teaching together, co-teaching around the US and around Europe for a while, until my husband said, time to come home and take care of the kids, which was about 2 years
Got a
later.
little sidetracked with the dream study of
Right,
dreams. He
right.
must have been blown away too.
My husband, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
no, your
Oh,
teacher at that
yeah,
point.
yeah. The teacher, and his name is Robert Moss. He has tons of books out. You can look him up, read about him. He rarely does live workshops anymore. He does mostly online workshops. And I learned a lot. But what was really cool is I think we both grew together while we were teaching together, and that was the fun part of it.
That's
So that's how
fantastic.
I got involved in it. Yes.
And so tell us about why you think dreams hold such significance in our lives.
Wow. The more I talk to people and the more I hear people's dreams, the more it becomes apparent that there's this whole other part of ourselves that is really more accessible to us in our non-waking states. And there's different kinds of ways to access those states. It doesn't have to be fully asleep. You can be daydreaming. A daydream is fine. When we meditate, we're having a dream state. Um, there was a study done that showed when jazz musicians were in full improvisation mode, that their brain waves were exactly the same as when they were dreaming. So dreaming is a very creative state, is a state of our subconscious or whatever that is in a super creative mode. And as a creative person, that's exciting to me. And so that's what's most exciting to me is what's coming up, what's bubbling up for us that we will need to pay attention to, that we may not notice out, when we're not in that kind of a state.
Our subconscious is making a lot of things happen in our dreams. And do you think it's all subconscious or some more out of the world messages that we're supposed to be receiving?
I think that every dream has several levels to it. I think there's the level of sort of working through something that may have happened yesterday or the last week. But I think there's also the level of, looking forward, thinking forward about how does this mirror something that I may be working on or may want to work on a deeper level. And then there's another level, which I think is that we actually can access other realms, other realities, if you will. And and that was the sort of dream I had that led me into this one. And those are the ones that I call the big dreams, the dreams where something else is happening and it's kind of giving you goosebumps within your dream.
I could dive into this for hours upon hours with you, Elizabeth. So, as we mentioned in the beginning, there are three types of dreams: reoccurring, we have nightmares, and then also visits from loved ones. So, let's dive into the reoccurring dreams. What might these dreams be telling us, and how can we begin to interpret them? So, I'm just going to share my reoccurring dream first, and I know that we'll be talking about some of the folks that are have joined us today some of their dreams towards the end of our conversation, but my reoccurring dream, Elizabeth, was about falling off a cliff.
Mm.
That was from a very young age, that was a reoccurring theme. I am in my life now, I am terrified of heights. And I just think that it's all very interesting how some people have said that could have been your past life, like how you died in your past life. So, with all of that being said, like what would you take away from that, and what can people learn from those reoccurring dreams?
So that's great. I'm just going to stop and back up just one little bit and say that the three types of dreams we're talking about today we're focused on those, on recurring nightmares, reoccurring dreams, nightmares, and visits from the departed, because those are the ones that most often show up for people. But there's tons of other kinds of dreams. There's prophetic dreams and mirror dreams and serial dreams. Anyway, there's tons, but those are the three, but they're not the only three. So recurring dreams come in different forms. Um, so when it's the same situation or issue represented in a familiar form again and again with deepening emphasis, we're probably getting a clear signal that we either need to get the message or act upon it. Another type of dream is when it's a recurring theme, right? So, or locale. So often people dream of being in the same house, over and over. And that I would call as a recurring theme dream, where those themes are recognizable to us because over time, hopefully, we've ascribed some sort of meaning to it. For me, a house, I often dream of a house on stilts, and it's come to mean the deeper parts of me, parts of me. And when I go into new rooms, it's like, oh, here's a new room. Here's a new side to me that maybe I want to explore. I know that when my friend Robert dreams of a kitchen, he often dreams of a kitchen when he's cooking up some new creative endeavor. So and then the third kind of recurring dream is what we call serial dreams, which is where the story starts in one place, like it might start on the cliff where you're falling, and then it builds a new plot, sort of like over different kinds of dreams, sort of like a mini series. And these kinds of dreams are interesting because they suggest that maybe or that the dreamer is an actor in somebody else's play, somebody else's dream or somebody else's role. Which is a really interesting concept. But if we go back to your dreams of falling are pretty common. And again, they could have multiple levels. It could be, again, something that you had in a past life. I think you said that. And it's just coming through and reminding you about that. It could be that, if you were to sort of go back into the dream or back into the image with your eyes closed, right, what are you falling towards, or what are you falling into? What's waiting for you to fall into? That would be of interest to me. And that's sort of one of the techniques of active dreaming or lucid dreaming, is to continue the dream, to see, often we stop the dream when it scares us and we go, oh my gosh, don't want to know anymore. But nightmares, for example, I believe, are interrupted dreams that are interrupted. They're dreams we haven't completed yet. So to go into a light trance, or however you're comfortable doing it, and to just let yourself fall. What do you fall into? Where do you fall? There might be some sort of really interesting thing waiting for you at the bottom.
Well, next time I have that dream, I'm going to ask myself to see what's at the bottom. I'm not sure that I've done that before. So,
Mhm.
are there other like symbols in dreams that you've seen come across many times? You've mentioned houses, but are there other and you also said falling. Is there anything else in a reoccurring dream that you've seen happen over and over again?
Often, people have some sort of number. They'll see a number like on a poster or something within the dream. And again, I'm just going to give my point of view. One of the pieces of the type of dreaming I do is to make sure that people know you are your own guru, you know. Again, like your dream of falling is very different than my dream of falling, and what you will fall into is very different than what I will fall into. So I'm just going to throw ideas out, and then people listening can kind of sort through what works for them, what doesn't. So, but if often when people see a number, to me, that often represents, or I ask myself, what was I doing at that age? You know, if I see the number 8, is that pointing me back to something at that age that I need to go look at or remember or something? Um, People often dream about shoes, and shoes and again, you can look these up, all these symbols, you can look them up in a dream dictionary. I hope you don't. I hope you find your own symbology through your own, you know, working with your dreams. But shoes can often mean, you know, that they're grounding. For me, shoes often, because I dream in puns, actually. And so to me, shoes represent soul, you know, the SOLE versus the SOUL. So when my soles are when I'm when my feet and my soles are on the ground, it says to me, I'm covering my soul. I'm not letting my spirit shine. And that's again through years of working with the symbology in my own dreams. But shoes are very, very often in dreams. People um, dream of the departed, which we're going to get into, you know, often. And, you know, what happened? Is this real? You know, can I believe this? Why did they come? All these questions. Those are just some of them. And we could, and again, symbology is people's symbology needs to come from, you need to understand it for yourself.
And yeah, I think that's the most important invitation for all of us to remember during our conversation today is that what does this mean to you individually? And your point about, well, you can look up a book in a book what shoes mean, but that doesn't necessarily mean you being your own guru. And I love this term, GURU. So GURU, and what's coming out of you is something that is, you know, individually important to you personally. So I love that invitation and thank you for reminding us about that because you can share your dreams with somebody and they might have a completely different interpretation than your own, and that's the most important. So let's talk about nightmares. They can feel so frightening and even overwhelming, and you could be running and never, you know, feel like you can't get away from whoever's chasing you or whatever that happens to be. You happen to love nightmares, which I find so fascinating. We were talking the other day, Mike, you love nightmares. You're weird, Elizabeth. But what do nightmares talk to us about? What do they tell us? And why do we have them? What is
So
their purpose?
exactly. Yeah, I love nightmares because to me that's where the juice is, right? That's just that there's so much energy in a nightmare, you know, and it's like, wow, something is really trying to come convey something to me. Um, in basically, um, we think of nightmares, I think of nightmares as aborted dreams that we stop short before gaining the full understanding of what they're trying to tell us. It's in many circumstances, if our dreams are trying to convey a message and we persist in refusing to listen, it's resorting to shock techniques, basically, is what a nightmare is. And so, so consider a nightmare where you've got menacing intruders entering your house. That's a scary dream. This could be an actual warning of a home invasion or burglary. You know, people do dream the future that could potentially happen. Or the intruders could be helpful messengers that you have been trying not to heed. So, a simple technique, as we said before, is to go back inside the dream or inside that image and conjure up the scene when you're in a light trance or meditative state and ask the intruders what they want. Why are they there? What's going on? And you know, and dream it forward. Um, in a sense, the dream state is an area where we are tested and choice and courage and our ability to grow. And if you don't deal with it in this arena, it will obviously show up in your waking life. So it's in many cultures, many dreaming cultures, indigenous cultures believe that everything happens first in your dream before it happens in your waking reality. So you've got a chance, if you're active and involved in your dreams, to try things out, to test things out, to avert things that may happen in your waking life. An example of a nightmare is, so when I first began teaching dreams, my kids were little, and my daughter we just put her out of private school into public school, and she was having a hard time making friends, and she was having this recurring dream where she was at a puppet show, and a man was coming out from behind the puppet theater with a big knife and cutting the kids' heads off. Scary, horrible,
Really scary, horrible.
very horrible. But she and I went back inside the dream together. We both said, okay, we're going to go back and we're going to go behind the puppet theater and we're going to find that man with the knife and ask him why he's doing this. And so sort of we visualized us holding hands and going back in, and we both got the same answer of that this man was looking out, and he was looking out from behind the puppet theater, looking at the children, and they were all frowning. And so he was going and taking their heads off and exchanging them with heads that smiled. So he was
Oh,
making,
interesting.
yeah. And he wasn't killing them, he was just exchanging their heads in the dream. And the next day, my daughter went to school and she started making friends. So that was a
Wow.
super wonderful thing to do for her. It gave her confidence that she could
Yeah.
change the reality in the dream and also in her waking reality, you know.
Well, and I love what you're saying here, and I like switching my personal definition of nightmares from nightmares to a potential healing opportunity, and that's what happened with your daughter, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah.
And have you seen other examples of healing coming from nightmares?
Um, yes, and I have to think about that. I do
We can
believe,
come back to that
yeah,
if
let
you'd
me
like.
come back to it, but I will say that another way that dreams happen is that our bodies talk to us in dreams. And there's um, there's a couple studies out that, again, show what that our bodies believe what our brains see. And so if our brain, and it doesn't matter if our brains are awake or asleep, our body believes it either way, which is why nightmares are so scary, because our body believes it's actually happening. But if we're using imagery to help heal, it's showing that our bodies believe that imagery, which is a bit of a tack from what you asked,
Yeah,
but
no, that's really good.
yeah.
Okay, anything else about nightmares you want to share with us before we hop into uh, dreams of loved ones?
I would say there are four things to think about when you're working with a nightmare. One is dialogue with your fear. Ask yourself, what is blocking me? What am I running from? What am I falling from? What am I falling into? Why am I afraid to finish this dream? And then you can go into the dream and dialogue with the adversary. Ask whoever or whatever is menacing you, who are you? What are you doing here? Why are you in my dream? What are you trying to tell me? Um, and then you could rescript it for yourself. Ask yourself what would happen if you changed your attitudes or your behavior inside the dream after you left it. Um, and dream it onward. Okay, as we are talking, what happens if it continues? So these invaders are menacing my house. Are they actually looking for something? Do they want to just come and talk? What dream it onward. And then you can invoke allies. I do believe that we have helpful spirits, helpful people within our dream space that we can call upon and ask for protection and for help, and for understanding when we're having a hard time inside the dream.
I love the invitation to be able to make allies and to make it your own story, and that there's healing opportunities in a nightmare. So someone asked, are nightmares based on anxiety, or do they just show up at a time when you need to hear the message?
Both. It can be both. To me, an anxiety dream for me is different than a nightmare. I often have anxiety dreams when I'm stressed with work or family issues, and what I find them actually helpful because the anxiety I made dreaming anxiously all night long. When I wake up, anxiety is gone because I've dealt with it in my waking dream. A nightmare to me is different, has a different feel than an anxiety dream. But again, that could be different for different people.
So let's switch gears and talk about those vivid dreams that come from loved ones that have passed. I know that I have had several that have been so profound that it has shocked me into thinking about another reality, say around my mom or my grandmother, and others that have passed as well. How do you begin to interpret these kinds of dreams, Elizabeth? They're so beautiful. And I mean, as some folks said that reached out about their personal dreams, that it's like you wake up and you're kind of in shock, or you're crying hysterically because it was so profound or vivid. Tell us more.
It really depends on what you believe, right? So my belief is that they're real, that when I dream of someone who's passed, I'm having an interaction with them. Um, I always ask though, when I meet them, I said, are you really my grandmother? Right? Because sometimes that grandmother could be representing a part of myself. Um, Other times it could be the grandmother could be what we call a grandmother energy, right? It couldn't be my grandmother, but some sort of friendly entity, spirit is whatever is bringing grandmother energy that I may need, and it may not be my actual grandmother. So I was just asked, who are you really? Um, but I do believe that most of the time what we see is really happening, and I believe they come calling for all the reasons that we visit each other in ordinary life, right? And they come because they want to make up, they want to ask for forgiveness. They might have something to tell us. They might have a message. Um, they simply may want to schmooze, right?
Yes. I want to just share one that I had from my grandmother that I really feel that it was a makeup with me. And
Mm,
I was on a train, and there was this big, like circular square. It seemed like it was in Europe, for instance. Like you get off the train and there are these big, beautiful squares. And there was tons of people around, and all of a sudden the crowd dissipated, and my grandmother walked into this circle with her hands like this. And, for me, we had such a contentious relationship, and we were just always, I think we were a lot alike, honestly, and we were just always like this. And I grew up with my grandma, and I took away from that dream that it was her peace offering to me. And since then, I've had a much different relationship with my grandmother in this realm today than I did before that dream.
that's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it was a true dream of healing, that sort of crossed realms and crossed the transpersonal realities. Just, I love when that happens. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for
I
sharing that.
mean, so many I could tell you about. And then is there a difference between a symbolic dream of a loved one and what some describe as that visitation? Um, Is that significant to make a difference there, or is it just that someone
Right.
has joined us? I mean, you have a dog, that's perfect. I have a doggy here too. So dogs are always welcome with us, Elizabeth, so don't worry about your puppy.
Um,
Yeah, so I'm just curious about that. Are there differences in those visitations or symbology in that dream when somebody comes?
um, well, I think the outcome is the same. I mean, to me, there's a message that's trying to come through, and whether it's coming from your actual grandmother or from the symbol of a grandmother, there's still a message that's coming through with the energy, the warmth, or whatever of the grandmother spirit that you remember.
And then, and Elizabeth, somebody actually asked, which is very relevant right here, is about our pets, dreaming about our pets. I rarely have dreams with people who have died, but I often have visits from my pets who have died.
Totally. I always do. I always do. In fact, my a quick story because I know we want to get on to everyone else's dreams. So my beloved beagle died last 2 years ago, and we were bereft. And I had a dream that he showed up and told me, "You have to find your next dog tomorrow. Tomorrow's the day." Okay, so I woke up, played hooky from work, don't tell, and and went on Pet Finder, right? And looked, and the one dog that kept popping out was this dog in Galveston, Texas. Oh, I'm in Redmond, Washington. I'm like, no, 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 no. So I went back to work, but it kept haunting me. So I came back on about 3 in the afternoon. Yeah, that's the dog. That's the dog. So I scroll down and I said, oh, look, the dog is being transferred. It's being transferred today out of Galveston. It's being transferred to Bellevue, Washington, and it's going to be at a PetSmart adoption thing in Bellevue, Washington today until 5 o'clock. And today is 3 o'clock. I better. So I called my husband and said, we're going to meet me at PetSmart. We're going to find our dog. And
Oh my gosh, that's
so I
amazing.
believe that my beagle chose our new dog, the one you just heard barking for us. So yes, I totally believe in pets and
And
dreams.
it's obviously obvious that your pet wanted us to know about that right now as we were talking about pets and dreams. So I just want to point that out. I love that.
There we
So
go.
before we get into some of the dreams that came to us from our audience, how can journaling or recording our dreams help us uncover patterns or insights?
Um, well, again, because you ultimately, the goal is to find your own dream symbology, build your own dream dictionary. And the only way to do that is to capture the symbols that are coming to you in your dreams. And then you may not know what they mean immediately, but if you capture even, even a snippet of a dream, like last night, I remember just a snippet and it was another house dream, right? And so I remember it and I'm going to put it down and more of it may unfold in the days to come. But if I start to see the pattern, then I can start to see, oh, every time I have a house dream, it's really about a new area of growth for me, right? And I can start to put the pieces together for myself. Um, and also because some dreams are prophetic, in really weird ways. You never know why. Um, I had a dream, a quick glance, I had a dream where I was on a high cliff and my mom was on one arm and my dad under another, and I had wings and we flew down to the edge of the universe, edge of the world, to the sea where a boat was waiting. And my dad happily got on it and my mom said, "It's not my time," and ran away. I woke up shook. I was sure that it was about my dad dying and my mom not. 6 months later, my parents had a trip to Antarctica. My mom at the very last moment got horrible food poisoning, and my dad flew all the way down to the end of the world, got on the ship all by himself. So, you know, if I
Futuristic dream.
very interesting in futuristic dreams. So, but I wrote it down so I was able to look back and go, oh, look, I dreamed that. And my mom was like, why didn't you tell me? And I thought, well, because I thought you were going to die. But yeah.
Some things we want to just keep close to our hearts. So we asked our audience today about some of their dreams, and Elizabeth and I thought we would take a couple and talk about them specifically. So I'm going to read this one from Megan. Um, so let's dive into a couple of the question or a couple of the dreams that came to us. My brother passed in a vehicle accident 2 years ago, and while I had a dream, not the first dream of him, I was driving a truck, which I don't, um, but I don't have the truck, but he did, and he was a solid ghost riding with me. And I was telling him about backpacks made out of his jeans that mom gave us for Christmas, and it goes on. Before he passed, at least a month prior, maybe two, I had a consistent feeling of dread. Something bad was going to happen. The week of the accident, I told my husband that I felt something bad was coming. My husband reminded me of this later. Curious if I'm just dreaming of my brother or if he popped in to actually say something this time to me. I only dream of one deceased relative, my grandma, and I don't feel the same way as when I do with my brother, at least this dream of him.
So it sounds like the brother dream is really present. It was really very real. And um, often when we dream of the deceased who have been in accidents, you know, there is, they often show up to tell us, didn't get a chance to say goodbye. I didn't get a chance to, to finish up with you. So really, accidental deaths are one of the very most common ways that the departed, why they show up is to talk to us and to do some completion work with that. Um, it sounds like there was a two-way conversation going on this one. And all I can say is that I would agree that it was real, and that what your dream is given you though is a location to go back and talk to him again. If you were to visualize yourself driving this truck and invite him to come and sit next to you if you wanted to talk to him again.
Well, I hope she's on, and thank you for that. So another one, it was interesting in there was about 10 people that responded, and there were three about homes. So it's interesting that you brought that up earlier. It says, this is from Nancy, a common reoccurring dream for me is that I have bought a house without looking at it first, and there is something seriously wrong with it. I wake up with a sinking feeling, oh no. How could I have done something so stupid? I can't afford this terrible mistake.
That's a frightening one.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so dreams about houses, again, we all have our own symbology, but they often represent ourselves. And they might represent my mind, my spirit, my body, or different rooms within the house might represent those different things. Um, this one, if it were my dream and I had a dream that I bought a house without looking at it, I might wonder if there's something that I've stepped into into an area in my life, that a new experience, a new room, a new some sort of big thing experience I've stepped into that maybe I didn't fully consider before entering into it. That would be one way that I would start to look at that one.
Yeah,
And then,
and no,
sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Now, I might also step back into the dream and look and see if I can see the surroundings of the house, if that might give me any indications, if there's words on the signpost near the house, or if there's a number on the house number that might give me some ideas of clues and directions to think about.
Thank you. So this is from Kim. My dreams are very lucid and I must say often surreal. Since my mother has passed on, most of them have her in my dreams. Other family members as well. However, more often than not, my beautiful mother. It's a presence, and I must say it's not always the most positive. It's not about her, more about me resolving past drama when she was a single mother, left my father for abusive issues, and carried on in life and took care of all four of us. I think I am trying to make amends for all of the issues she had to deal with, and I feel like I need to make good again.
That's a heavy one. It would be heavy if it was mine. Um, I would just say I'm not clear from the dream if you want to make, to have this dream with your mother or not. I'm not, and you always have the choice to to change the dream, to tell the people in the dream, go away, I don't want to talk to you right now, or to walk away. Um, I would also say that um, I would, I wouldn't, if there's lots of amends to make with the mom, make sure that within each dream sequence, you're trying to parse apart one at a time as opposed to doing the whole thing at once. Um, yeah, but good on you to tackle it this way. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I think that's a really good invitation to have a conversation. So this one is from Mary Kate. I have a good friend. Hi, Mary Kate. I hope you're on. I have a recurring dream that takes place over and over in a dream town I have come to know well, a main drag, a nice neighborhood on a hill, a hotel where other people are often occupying my room, and an old steam train that runs through town. And I'm often late in catching it. All of the dreams concern about getting home with inadequate transportation and traveling companions who disappear, leaving me to often depend on kind and jolly strangers.
There's a lot to that dream.
Yes.
It's almost like there's three dream scenarios in one, and that's part of what's interesting about writing them down. You can sort of see that there's the first dream where she's in the town with the hotel and the steam engine, and then there's a second one that that you're late catching the steam train. I again dream or talk about dreams with puns. And when I see the word that there's a steam train, I would think, what am I running out of steam? What is running out of steam in my life? And if it surrounds my neighborhood, I mean, is my current situation in my neighborhood running out of steam for me? Just an idea, just a thought. Um, Often transportation dreams, that is another big way symbol in people's dreams going from one place to another. They're so often about transitions, moving not only from a place to another place, but from an experience to another experience, or a relationship to another relationship. And so I think it's interesting that in this dream, she's depending on strangers, jolly strangers. So to me, it's entering into a new situation with new people who are going to be helpful and friendly. That's how I would tend to take it.
Thank you for that. And I hope that resonates with you, Mary Kate. We'll talk later. This one is from Rachel, and she goes, I haven't had a dream in a while, but I used to have reoccurring tornado dreams, impending doom.
So I would
What do
just
you think
ask,
about that?
one of the questions to ask when you come out of a dream is, how do I feel? Right? So
Mhm.
I might have a dream about a tornado and I may come out feeling excited, but not necessarily doom. And so I would just ask if the feeling was actually doom or if that's my sort of mind putting the doom on top of it. Um, to me, this one is a bit of a nightmare,
Yeah,
because
for sure.
tornadoes create such destruction. But it might be somewhat prophetic. What's coming to sweep away the old in my life? What's coming to sweep away, and to be sort of ready for a big transition that might be coming. That's how I might interpret that.
Well, that's interesting. You keep mentioning transitions. So, do dreams, are there certain dreams that encourage us to look at what's happening in our life, like right now, and what might be like coming into the future, or something that's maybe looking at ourselves and it's like what's working and what's not? And maybe it is time for an opening to walk through. I think that's really interesting because transitions, having dreams that intuit transitions is really an invitation for movement in our
Yeah,
lives.
yeah, and there is, sort of a series of questions to ask, which I haven't gone into here. But one of them is, could this dream happen in waking reality? To do a reality check. Like if I had done the reality check about my parents flying down to the end of the world, I would have gone, oh yeah, they're going to Antarctica, right? And see that it was a prophetic sort of thing. Um, we shouldn't always immediately assume it's symbolic or literal, but that there might be elements of both in every single one of the dreams. And then some people use the word lucid dreaming to describe what I'm dreaming, what I'm describing, or to me, I use the word conscious dreaming, that I want to be conscious and awake. Lucid is just a similar word. It tends to have, for me, it carries a bit of a interesting note, because when lucid dreaming started, it came out, I think, in the 60s or 70s, and people would wear glasses that would, like, whenever their REM sleep started going to the right place, then it would ping them that you're dreaming. And so it would shock them a little bit. Oh, now you have to do something. So whereas the techniques that I work with are a little more gentle, and you're more in control rather than something telling you what to do now. That's my feeling. But usually lucid and conscious dreaming are used interchangeably.
So a couple of questions in the chat. When I can't sleep, this is from Audra, I'll turn on my TV and see documentaries of people I once knew, classmates, students, colleagues.
Okay, so real documentaries, or this is a dream?
So is this a dream, or I wasn't sure about that either. Let's see if
Real. So you turn on the TV and all of a sudden there's documentaries of people you've known. That's very cool. That's sort of what I would call a waking dream, which gets into the whole point of synchronicities. And often, I'll dream of something and then it'll happen the next day. And it's if you start tracking your dreams, semi-regularly, you do start to see this weave and ripple pattern of dream waking, sort of following through, like a weave in your life.
interesting. Here's another one from Susan. I have a reoccurring dream of being in school on the final exam day and realize I haven't gone to any of my classes all year, so don't know where the class is or how I'm going to pass the test. I've had this dream for years and it has been years since I've been in school. What could it mean?
It usually means about, anxiety about learning something new about, I mean, it can mean, it can be past, stuff you're trying to get out of your system, or it can be just, anxiety about a test that's coming up, about an exam, about something, learning opportunity that you want to make sure you're prepared for. That's often what that can mean.
So, Rita, this is interesting. My son can fly in his dreams as fast as he wants. I've tried, but I can't. What would that symbolize?
That he's fine. To me, he's actually flying in his dreams. I love to
Yes,
fly in my
fine.
dreams. Yeah. Um, and and remember, in your dreams, you're a shapeshifter. You can be whatever you want to be. You can shapeshift into a bird or a butterfly or a falcon or whatever. And sprout wings. I often visualize myself sprouting wings and just flying off. So there are techniques to do that for yourself. I would, yeah,
Love
because it'd
that
be
so
fun to go
much.
and fly with your son and see where he goes.
That's an interesting invitation, Rita. So maybe you should try that. So you mentioned that you have some questions that people can ask themselves about their dreams. Could you share some of those with us?
Yeah. So when you come out of a dream, you want to, first thing you want to say is, you want to do is give it a title. Sort of like, so you want to make it sort of concrete in your head. Oh, this is the dream about, Rita's son flying, this is the flying dream, whatever. Or this is the falling dream. And the second thing is to say, how do I feel? Check my emotional thing. Is this, if I'm in the falling dream and I'm scared, that's one thing. If I'm in the falling dream and I'm excited, or happy, this different gives me a different feel. If there's a disconnect between the image and the feeling, that really tells me it's more of a symbolic dream than a literal dream. Um, then I want to say, do the reality check. Could this happen to me in waking life? Could I fall from a high place? Could I fall somewhere? And do a check. And then if the answer is yes, then you're aware, right? If the answer is no, then again, it's more symbolic. What am I falling from? What am I falling to? Um, and then I ask myself, what is it that I really want to know about from this dream? What is the unanswered question in my head? And that's what I write down. And then that's where I start to look around and seek answers. Go back inside the dream, or maybe I journal, or maybe I do some Googling, or maybe I talk to a friend or a therapist or whatever. But what is it that I really want to know? What's left unsaid or not understood?
So I want to end on this question from Adrian, and she had a dream in high school, a vivid dream that President Reagan was going to get shot, and as well as James Brady. So, and then it happened. So, with those types of futuristic dreams that come true, how do you how do you navigate that knowledge? Or, if you have some information that you've been given in a dream that you think might come true, what do you do with that?
Well, unfortunately, our culture doesn't give a lot of stock in prophetic dreams. So that sort of dream, I don't know, you could have done anything with it, but it's said that big dreams cast a long shadow, or big events cast a long shadow. And so we're probably all as culturally dreaming some things that haven't happened yet to us as a culture. And we may see parts of it, or what do you do with it? I guess you just notice that you can do prophetic dreaming, and that as you do more and more dreams, take your dreams a little bit more literally than perhaps someone else might.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was listening to a recent podcast called The Telepathy Tapes, and they
Mm.
talk in some of the episodes about dreaming and having um, information being given to them about things that will happen. So you might look at the telepathy tapes, Adrian, as some more insightful opportunity. It's very deep into telepathy and other things that other invitations um, from a spiritual realm that are very profound. And I have found a lot of, I just can't wait to listen to the next episode. So I would highly recommend those on a variety of different levels. Elizabeth, is there anything else that you would like to leave us with today?
I would just say, don't be scared of your dreams. You know, people people have these big scary dreams or recurring dreams that they don't understand, and then they shy away from them. And I would say lean into them, lean into it, and an archaeologist, if you will, of your own, unearth your own understandings and symbology, and because I think there's a lot to gain from living inside your dreams as much as possible.
Elizabeth, I've been looking forward to our conversation for weeks and weeks because I think there's so much to be found um, in each of the messages that we receive in the night. And thank you so much for joining us. And we appreciate your insight and hope that you will continue to teach,
Mm.
and so that we can all know more about what's happening between here and there. If you would like to contact Elizabeth, you can do so at her Gmail account at esdemarco@gmail.com. Thank you, Elizabeth, so much. You
You
are
bet.
amazing.